What's up? It's Miss Devoted Tiff here to chime in on, you guessed it, Real Housewives of Atlanta, talking about season 9, episode 16. So let's just jump right in. So we come back in on the end of Kandi about to lose her mind. I'll be honest with y'all, this storyline is wearing me out a little bit because it feels so forced to me. Like, why would Kandi get this upset over something Portia heard? And it keeps going back to, well, she could go to jail for that. She has kids. But let's just be logical about this. One, you can only go to jail for things that you've actually done and that there is proof of, or you are innocent till proven guilty. And she claims these receipts, i.e., text messages, prove that Portia was still trying to hang out with them, and that if she believed that they were trying to drug her, she wouldn't have continued to hang out with them. Although Portia did say on Watch What Happens Live that she heard later, like 3 years after they hung out that night, she heard from a friend that that's what Kandi was going to try to do. Obviously, Portia didn't believe it either because she wouldn't have continued to be friends with her. And like she said, she brought it up, which was definitely a low blow. But Kandi has been throwing her share of low blows herself. But she brought it up because she felt like Kandi was coming for her. Anyways, back to my original point. I don't get why Kandi is this upset. Speaking of upset, y'all know I could not let it pass that she got that upset, said she wanted to choke her, and nobody brought up anything about anger management. Everybody was like, oh, I can understand why she was upset. And if it was Portia that said it, Kenya, because Kenya loves any moment to try to get everybody rallied against Portia or to talk against Portia. If it was Portia that had done that, Kenya would have been like, you can be upset with people, but you don't put your hands on anybody. You don't threaten to put your hands on anybody. And that's her whole reason for still dealing with Matt, even though we know that's fake. But that's still her whole reason for dealing with Matt, is the fact that he has not threatened her or has not put his hands on her. So it's very interesting how, depending on which cast member it is, certain things are okay. Kandi is an OG, so I get it. A lot of people are not going to come for her. A lot of people are not going to say Kandi is overreacting. So Todd ended up having to calm her down. Kenya tries to go over there and calm her down. And then, an interesting move, Phaedra tries to go over there and calm her down. And Phaedra kind of uses that moment to say, oh, well, me and Todd had issues. I think that was a bad move. I get what she was trying to say. She was trying to say, things were accused of me that could have made me really upset, but I didn't get upset. And I will say that about Phaedra, even though I'm not as much of a fan of her as I used to be. I will say that a lot of stuff has been said about Phaedra, but you never see her lose her cool. But that could just be because she don't want to get banned from the lawyer bar, but whatever. Todd, Portia's boo, didn't seem fazed by any of this at all. And of course, Sheree, which to me was the whole reason this whole thing got started. It was just so random in the middle of dinner. So the girls have been saying they feel like you've been lying on people. Like, she had to, knowing how the situation was already heated, she had to bring her bone. But we'll get to Sheree later. I'm not going to give her too much this time because her part of the episode, to me, was the realest part of the episode, because I feel like this whole thing with Kandi and Portia was kind of like a little thing that was blown out of proportion and low-key is a fake storyline. Because why would there be so much anger over something that happened 3 years ago? But I digress. So they're taking Kandi away from the table, and she starts trying to basically do exactly what she was upset at Portia for doing, going below the belt and saying stuff she shouldn't say. And so now she's saying she's a freak hoe and she's this and she's that. She tried to get with another one of my friends, and she is just losing it while they're pulling her away. So I think it's interesting that she's calling Portia a freak hoe for kissing her, but she was the married woman kissing Portia. Does that not make her a freak hoe as well? I don't know what the guidelines are to be a freak hoe. And it just trips me out. The women on this show, they get mad at each other for doing the exact thing they do when they're in that same situation. For instance, Kandi is, again, talking about oh, well, I have kids, I could go to jail for that. And her and Todd loosely said Phaedra knew what Apollo was doing. They kind of loosely said that Phaedra knew what Apollo was doing. I believe Todd on the last reunion was like, okay, she knows everything, but she didn't know what was happening with her own husband in her house. Come on now. That could have been something that could have gotten her put in jail. And speaking of kids, she had kids when they said that. So it's funny because it's like, it's okay to say things that would not be good for my kids to hear, or to take me away from my kids, or put me in jail when I'm upset at you and it's about you. But when an accusation is thrown at me, oh no, no, no. You can't say nothing that could put me in jail or that would affect my kids. So they're back, in their rooms talking about what happened. Of course, Kenya is trying to hype it up and use that situation to throw more shade and throw more stones at Portia. Jan, what else is new? They're trying to talk Candy down, and she says the next day that she don't think Portia should go, that Portia should just do her own thing. I'm not surprised. I think she said it because she thought she was going to pop off again and she didn't want to look crazy again. So they all find out Portia's not going. They're like, oh yeah, well, we know she doesn't have the best experience on boats, which is interesting to me because Cynthia kind of perpetrated that situation and overreacted the last time on a boat. Kenya's always putting people off of boats and driving the boat all crazy. And Portia, again, did not bring it up. She didn't come like trying to turn up and start drama or say anything to Candy. If anybody shouldn't be going on the boat, it's Sheree, because she liable to bring it up again. So Phaedra delivers the message to Portia, and Portia was cool with it. She's like, hey, this is my chance to hang out with my man. Phaedra really just seems like she is just all about Candy in this situation, but we all know why, because she don't want to escalate it because she's afraid that it's going to come out that she's the one that really started the rumors. And then they talk about how well Cynthia's getting along with Peter. And Cynthia kind of alludes to, she should, take one more time. Hey, if y'all still married, you go ahead and get that one for the road, girl. So then it gets to the part that I really feel like is the more important part of this episode, outside of this fake, over-dramatized storyline that Portia and Candy have, is Sheree and Bob. They're sitting in the van, just kind of talking about the day and talking about, their past, and it comes up about the physical violence. And Bob asks, which is funny to me, like he didn't remember that it happened. He's like, did I ever hit you? Did I ever choke you? Sheree gets very quiet, and as we know, Sheree is very vocal, so her silence said a lot in that moment. She got very quiet, and she just kind of silently was like, yeah, you did. And then he says this crazy thing. He says, oh, I don't remember, must not have choked you hard enough. And the girls in the back, they like respond like looking at her and looking at him like, how could he say that? She immediately starts to cry. We don't see Sheree cry much, so it was obvious that it got to her. And I had tweeted about this. She was not crying because she was hurt by what he said. She was crying because in that moment, she realized it's not going to work out this second time around. He hasn't changed. That guy in there that is not sensitive and that can be a jerk, and she put it, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, is still in there. And I think it broke her heart. She realized that, because I really think that she was getting her hopes up about their future and about him, kind of acting right lately. They had just had a good time at the gym. And I think it just broke her heart more than anything. And, I think it was clear to me he realized what he did. And I've dated guys like that they realize they've gone too far. And instead of coming out right and apologizing, they just kind of start talking sweet and getting a little more gentle and calling you baby. And, he starts grabbing her hand. I hate that it's like, if you can just hurt me, don't touch me. Like, just give me a second, apologize, and get away from me. So she let him grab her hand. I'm sure some people were like, why is she holding hands with him? Why is she nodding in agreement to what he's saying? but I've been in that situation too. She didn't want to turn up in that moment when he's being Mr. Hyde. She didn't want to turn up in front of her friends and escalate the situation because at this point she knows that other side of him. So in that moment, it was just better for her to just allow him to hold her hand, act like everything's okay, and just agree. So then we go back to Phaedra, and she's talking about moving up the restoration service to there on the island because she thinks they won't last the rest of the trip without it. And in my head, all I can think about is why hasn't it come up yet that she was the one that started all this, and now she's trying to have a restoration service. And I'm like, I don't want you leading the restoration service until you come clean, because that's going to be something else that needs to be dealt with in the restoration service. So the girls all meet up. Of course, Candy wasn't really there for it. And it starts out with Kenya kind of talking to Sheree about the situation with Bob. And Sheree uses that moment to say, you're saying this, but you kind of made light of the fact that I was abusing my past, and you used it like against me, like a joke. And Kenya was like, well, you act like you were taking, a guy's side when it comes to domestic abuse, and you should never do that. And so they were kind of going at it until Phaedra intervened and was like, it was just a misunderstanding. So then Candy and Portia have their moment. And Portia kind of does a backhanded apology. I don't remember what it's called. But she's like, you were upset. She's like, I understand you being upset. I was saying something that, you were trying to make like it was a lie, but I was telling the truth. And then Candy at this point, like, before you say anything else, I just don't give a F about you no more. And they use this time to do flashbacks because Candy's like, I've been there for you. I promoted you even when you didn't promote yourself. I was always looking out for you. And they cut away to her helping her after the divorce. And she's like, and the one time I say something, then you decide to, just do all of this. Portia didn't back down. And Portia was like, we did have whatever in the past, but if you're coming for me to this degree, like, I'm gonna come for you too. Now, in real life, I'm a Christian. I don't believe that's how you should play it. Like, but they have to work with each other. So that's how they keep the drama going. So in this environment, in this setting, I'm not surprised, and I expect her to clap back when Candy says stuff about her, even if she shouldn't have. But she did admit that she shouldn't have reacted as strongly as she did, and that was kind of that. So then we go to Bob trying to make up with Sheree, and he has her meet him, and he screws up again, y'all. Sitting in that conversation, she's saying, you knew how much that hurt me, and it was like you were making a joke out of it. And he was like, that's how I deal with things. That may not be the best way. It may not be. Obviously, it's not the best way to like joke about something serious. But I actually do know a lot of people that do that. And then in the middle of that conversation, he starts doing it again, and she just gets up and leaves. He's trying to get her to stay, but I think at that point she had saw everything she needed to see, and it was no point staying and try to talk it out. It's like my saying, you can't reason with crazy and you can't argue with stupid. So for her, that conversation was over. And that was pretty much that episode. Sounds like the drama is definitely not over. But let me know your thoughts on Candy and Portia. Let me know your thoughts on Bob and Sheree. Let me know your thoughts on the Kenya and Sheree situation. And let me know your thoughts on Phaedra, hot and under the radar. This is your girl, Miss Devoted Tiff. I will catch you next week. Bye.